because it was appearing in a scene between man and woman, but still the Bhagavad Gita was quoted and millions of people saw that. So it's very interesting. Has quite increased the popularity of the book. So we're going to read from 442. So I'm not sure if you've already been in classes before, but basically we read the Sanskrit and then everyone can respond and then we can start. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, so it's 442, huh? I don't see it yet. Tasmata Kyana Sambhutam Ritstam Kyana Sinatmanaha Chitvainam Samshayam Yogam Atishthotishta Bharata Tasmat Akyana Sambhutam Ritstam Kyana Sinatmanaha Chitvainam Samshayam Yogam Atishthotishta Bharata Tasmat Akyana Sambhutam Ritstam Kyana Sinatmanaha Chitvainam Samshayam Yogam Atishthotishta Bharata. Anyone wants to chant? Vadagyana Sambhutam Ritstanam Kyana Sinatmanaha Chitvainam. Okay. Tasmat, therefore. Akyana Sambhutam, born of ignorance. Ritstam, situated in the heart. Jnana, of knowledge. Asina, by the weapon. Atmanaha, of the self. Chitva, cutting off. Enam, this. Samshayam, doubt. Yogam, in yoga. Atishta, be situated. Utishta, stand up to fight. Bharata, O descendant of Bharat. Translation. Therefore the doubts which have arisen in your heart out of ignorance should be slashed by the weapon of knowledge. Armed with yoga, O Bharat, stand and fight. So now there's a long purport, and I'm going to read it, and then afterwards I'm just going to ask you like one word that stood out for you, or something in that purport stood out for you. So I'm gonna all put you out here. So because I know it's long, it's one page, it's a little hard to concentrate, but try to grasp like one thing of it. That'd be very nice. The yoga system instructed in this chapter is called Sanatan Yoga, or eternal activities performed by the living entity. This yoga has two divisions of sacrificial actions. One is called sacrifice of one's material possessions, and the other is called knowledge of self, which is pure spiritual activity. If sacrifice of one's material possessions is not dovetailed for spiritual realization, then such sacrifice becomes material. But one who performs such sacrifices with a spiritual objective or in devotional service makes a perfect sacrifice. When we come to spiritual activities, we find that they are also divided into two, namely understanding of one's own self or one's constitutional position, and the truth regarding Supreme Personality of Godhead. One who follows the path of Bhagavad Gita as it is can very easily understand these two important divisions of spiritual knowledge. For him, there is no difficulty in obtaining perfect knowledge of the self as part and parcel of the Lord. And such understanding is beneficial, for such a person can easily understand the transcendental activities of the Lord. In the beginning of this chapter, the transcendental activities of the Lord were discussed by the Supreme Lord himself. One who does not understand the instructions of the Gita is faithless and is to be considered to be misusing the fragmental independence awarded to him by the Lord. In spite of such instructions, one who does not understand the real nature of the Lord as the eternal blissful all-knowing personality of Godhead is certainly fool number one. Ignorance can be removed by gradual acceptance of the principles of Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is awakened by different types of sacrifices to the demigods, sacrifices to Brahman, sacrifice in celibacy, in household life, and controlling the senses, and practicing mystic yoga and penance, in foregoing material possessions, in studying the Vedas, and in partaking of the social institution called Varnashram Dham. All of these are known as sacrifice, and all of them are based on regulated action. But within all these activities, the important factor is self-realization. One who seeks that objective is the real student of Bhagavad Gita, but one who doubts the authority of Krishna falls back. One is therefore advised to study Bhagavad Gita or any other scripture under a bona fide spiritual master with service and surrender. A bona fide spiritual master is in the disciplic succession from time eternal, and he does not deviate at all from the instructions of the Supreme Lord, as they were imparted millions of years ago to the Sun God, from whom the instructions of Bhagavad Gita have come down to the earthly kingdom. One should therefore follow the path of Bhagavad Gita as it is expressed in the Gita itself, and beware of the self-interested people after personal aggrandizement who deviate others from the actual path. The Lord is definitely the Supreme Person, and his activities are transcendental. One who understands this is a liberated person from the very beginning of his study of Bhagavad Gita. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Okay. Okay, so as promised, just share one word with me of what you remembered from the purport. Anything, can be any word. Anything. I'll start. Okay. Dovetail. Okay.
Any word of the side.
It's okay. We can do someone else. I mean, this is not really to put you on the spot. I was just like, it can be any word you can say.
It was
anything.
nice the point of there are so many things, but actually one that seeks the self-realization is. Okay, sorry. You can say.
You can say any word, anything that stood out, or even anything that happened inside your heart while you were hearing this. There's no wrong and right.
Okay.
That's it.
Also, what sticks in my head is sacrifice.
Sacrifice. Okay.
I was also going to say sacrifice.
Sacrifice. Okay. Wow. Yeah, it's okay. You can just say it. I'm gonna hear it.
Service.
Service, sacrifice, service,
Devotional service.
service. Anything at all? Nothing. Okay, so nothing. Nothing.
It was Sanatana Yoga. Beginning it says.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, that is
Interesting. Most words start with S. And you had something?
I remember also sacrifice.
Sacrifice. Okay. You want me to speak about sacrifice? Huh? No? Yes? Yeah, I mean, like, it's a very interesting part of the Bhagavad Gita, because in one sense, the crisis that Arjuna has faced is the crisis of the mind. It's not a crisis of the heart. So it's kind of a situation where he's on the battlefield and he's doubting everything about himself. He's doubting whether or not he made the right steps that led to the outcome, because he's on this battlefield and just on the other side, there are his friends, his teachers, everyone that gave him so much in this life. So he's about to start a war, like he's about to fight. And it's not even by choice. It's not like he wanted to. He didn't want to fight. Maybe you have experienced situations in life like that, where someone wanted to fight with you. You didn't want to fight with them, but they wanted to fight with you. So he didn't really have a choice, because it was his dharma, as we call it. Dharma means like his life purpose, to defend the innocent people, the people that just wanted to live peacefully. It's very relevant right now. We have wars happening, although people are very divided who's good and who's bad. But at this time it was more clear, I guess. Maybe actually not, because people were on both sides. People of the same family, people of the same friend group, suddenly they were facing each other in war, and they were about to kill each other. But at that time, war was also handled a little differently. They would fight during the day, and in the evening they would go back to their tents and be together, take care of their wounded ones, and then only during the day they would start fighting again. If you see footage of the war between Ukraine and Russia, it's a little different. Drones are flying into, what is Panzer in English? Tank, into a tank. There's a lot of killing going on where it's not man against man or woman against woman. It's just, shooting, explosions and bombs. But here you would fight, man to man. And Arjuna is having a mental breakdown, you could say. He starts to cry, his knees start to shiver, and you have to understand, Arjuna is like one of the greatest warriors. So you can imagine it's like, one president meeting another, and one is kind of like losing it and getting nervous and starting to cry. It's quite a scene. So Arjuna is really like, he doesn't know what to do. And of course, this illusion, this consciousness was arranged by the Lord, of course. It was arranged because the Bhagavad Gita had to be spoken. And Krishna is kind of telling him now, give up these doubts that have arisen in your heart by knowledge. So reason, of course, is a good thing, but reason has its limitations. For example, if you're very attached to something, then even if you give good reasons, you might not stop. Let's take again, because it's also war, Ukraine and Russia. I'm sure both sides have heard about reasoning of how to resolve this differently, but yet the fight goes on. I'm not taking any side here, I'm just saying the fight goes on. So reason is one thing, but the problem is the state of heart, the attachment that is in the heart. Yeah, I'm sure you've been in situations in life where you were very much attached to something that was not good for you. Yeah, maybe it was eating chocolate, maybe it was a relationship, maybe it was a habit or addiction, something. You were attached to something that was not good for you. You know it, you can see it. You even hear your mind saying, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, and you do it. Has it ever happened to you? It has happened to me. Yeah? Brian, has it happened to you? Yeah? No? Okay, so it has happened to all of us. Because we are essentially very emotional beings. We don't act out of logic. And even if you think you act out of logic, you actually don't. Because in your subconscious mind, in the chitta, which is here the heart, they are all of these different samskaras. Samskaras are impressions of the consciousness. They make you who you are today. For example, if you have a fear of something, or if you have certain beliefs about yourself and about the world, so many different things. Jai Nishingadev Bhagavan. By the way, Nishingadev has an eyebrow missing on the left side. Okay. So it's kind of like a situation where the heart controls us, but we are not aware of it. It can even start in this lifetime. For example, if you had a certain childhood, one caregiver was not there, or you were traumatized as a child, it will control you for the rest of your life until you don't do really intense practice to work on yourself. So if you then take the theory or the reality of reincarnation, then this started already so many lifetimes ago. So when you come to this planet already, you have certain samskaras, certain impressions around your heart that push you in a certain direction. And then in childhood, it is all coming out even more. So therefore, even the most rational and logical person is ultimately driven by some type of emotion. Yeah, for example, let's take Elon Musk. Maybe he's seen as a very rational person, logical person, but ultimately he is driven by emotions for success, for power, or different things. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm not judging here. I'm just saying every person's motive inside their life, it's ultimately driven by emotion. And it's very easy to understand, of course. Why do we have a conflict? You get ever triggered by someone, a person that triggers you? Has it ever happened to you? Has it happened in the last 7 days? Has it happened? The last 24 hours you got triggered by someone? Happens all the time, right? It's like something irritates us, or we see something, or we read about something, and we get triggered. Something happens inside of us. But of course, it's not about the other person. It's never about the other person. It's about what is happening inside of us. You know, why is a person falling in love with someone and is hating another person? Why is that so? It's, you know, it doesn't in one sense make so much sense, but it is like that. We see the world according to our inner emotional world, where if a person fits our inner state and there's a pull created, we are drawn to that person. You've maybe sometimes seen people that end up in relationships that can be quite opposite sometimes, because, you know, opposites attract each other. But also, we always like to be with the people that reinforce the consciousness that feels most safe to us. Therefore, the person that grew up in a very toxic childhood, later on in their life, they will go for that toxic relationship, because their mind has defined that as safety. Because our mind always goes to that which is familiar and safe. Therefore, in spiritual life, when we start to adopt new values, we want to change, it's very hard, because our mind goes back to that which is safe and familiar, always. And to break that is very hard, because you can, as much as you, because the knowledge that Krishna is speaking about is not the knowledge of a book, by the way. Like Bhagavad Gita is a book, that's one dimension, but it's a reality that you can experience. So, for example, yesterday I was reading Autobiography of a Yogi. It's a very nice book. And there's this teacher that tells his disciples to read the Bhagavad Gita, read one verse, and then he tells them, now sit half an hour in silent and reflect on what you heard. So this is also a way to study Bhagavad Gita. You can read through it, you can manage that. I don't know how long it will take you, but I think it's quite fast. I think you can even manage it in an hour or so, I'm not so sure. You can quite fast go through it, but that doesn't mean that you understood anything at all. So therefore, what Krishna really speaks about here is like the knowledge that reaches the heart and cleanses the heart. So anything you do in life, if it doesn't touch your heart, you're not going to change and you're not going to transform. You're just going to start paste and copy, you know, especially in the temple, you sometimes see, everyone is just like shaving up, taking on the bed sheets, running around, Hare Krishna, Hare Bol, sometimes not really understanding what they're doing, but it's going on. And that is okay, maybe to create a new identity. Okay, I'm not anymore the person of the past. I'm a new person now. But in the end, it has to sink into the heart and it has to transform the heart. Otherwise, you will stay the same person. You can meditate for 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours. I think the most I did was 9 hours for a day. But it can all be a waste if it doesn't reach the heart. Because maybe for you to reach God is not to endlessly meditate, but it is something else. It's a unique relationship we have with God. And therefore you see different spiritual people have different inclinations and different way of meeting the Lord. So therefore when we are chanting and we're actually sitting down, we're doing meditation, we want to focus to do it in such a way that it actually reaches the heart. That it actually goes deep and it's not just a mechanical, it all stays here. It all stays, if you will call it into brainwaves, it stays on the beta brainwaves. These are the brainwaves of the active mind. It doesn't go deep into the meditative alpha brainwaves or even deeper. Yeah, Rajagun is very active. And then Sattvagun, the brainwaves start to slow down. When your brainwaves start to slow down, you reach deeper states of consciousness. So when, sometimes they did scientific experiments with different monks and they would put all kinds of cables on their head. I don't know how they measure it, but they can measure brainwaves. And they saw that people that go deep into meditation, the brainwaves are slowing down. So also in spiritual life, you want to see that your mind starts to slow down a bit more, starts to calm down a bit more, because otherwise you cannot penetrate into the deeper layers of your heart. And that is the situation of Arjuna. He knows he needs to fight. He knows it's the right thing. He knows he has no other choice. He knows he cannot go in the forest, although he's asking it. He knows he cannot do it. He knows he has to fight, but still he has a mental breakdown. And then Krishna is giving him knowledge. But again, it's not just book knowledge. He's imparting his realizations into Arjuna. So for example, when you have guru and disciple, what actually happens is the guru transfers his own consciousness onto the disciple. So just like you go in school, you learn mathematics, biology, or all these different types of things, but in spirituality what happens, it's a transmission of consciousness. So when Prabhupada speaks here about a disciplic succession, it's a transmission of one consciousness to the other, where something deeper is revealed. And in this way, Arjuna's heart is transformed because he's listening with an intensity. He's not standing there, okay, just tell me. Okay, what did you say? I did not listen. No, he's like rapid attention. He's like, for him it's like life or death. He's like that intention, that attention and that determination to really digest what is spoken. And therefore, when Arjuna hears the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna reveals his universal form to him. And when we read Bhagavad Gita, we don't experience that usually. We just read it and it's like, wow, okay, that's far. Is that even true? I don't know. It's just a book after all. But Arjuna was actually experiencing it. So that is the knowledge that kills the doubts of the heart. And that is the greatest sacrifice we can actually make. The greatest sacrifice that we can make is that we start to trust the state of heart more than the state of mind. Yeah, I have to be really careful, after all. Religious-minded people don't like to hear this so much, but spiritual life is a real experience in the heart. It has to be experienced in the heart. All the book knowledge, all the meditation, all the practice needs to lead to a realization of the heart. For example, I saw in the Telegram group, I saw that Sankirtan devotees were going out. And I thought it looked very nice because when I was looking in the faces of these devotees, it really looked like they were experiencing something deeper. And when that happens, what happens? When you experience something deeper, then other people, they start coming to you because they want to have some glimpse of that consciousness. They also want to get that. But I've also seen Sankirtan devotees being out, and I felt like, ooh, I don't want to be there. So it's all a state of consciousness that will allow us also to share something. We cannot share anything if we don't carry anything in our heart. It's impossible. You cannot give what you don't have. So therefore, when we choose to take shelter in a guru, we choose a guru that we believe has a state of heart that we also want to have. We want to have a heart, we want to have that type of heart. We don't want to paste and copy Prabhupada, but we want to have his heart. And that can only happen when we let go of like all the different identification that we have given ourselves. Arjuna's crisis is a crisis of identification. Because he identified himself as the disciple of this teacher, as the friend of that person, as the family member of that person. Therefore, he had such a crisis. Like all of our crises in life are ultimately a crisis of identity. Did you know that most crimes happen in families? Most murders, I think, even. Did you know that? People that once loved each other so much suddenly start to kill each other. Now, why is that? I mean, I don't know, but I have a theory about it. And the theory is that because the identity is broken. Because their identity was, I'm this person's husband. And now this woman wants to leave me. So now I don't have an identity anymore. So now I go crazy. Or this person has another religion. What does that mean for me and my identity? Let's, cast them away. Or I lose my job. People go nuts when they lose their job because it's such a big part of their identity. And they genuinely suffer. It's not like they're imagining it. They're genuinely suffering. But why? Because that was part of their identity. And anything that creates your identity that is based on something that can be taken away from you is an identity that makes you very vulnerable and that will ultimately need to fall away, latest when you die. When you die, you can't take anything with you. It's a very confusing experience, actually. I don't know if you ever had an out-of-body experience. Like my first or my second out-of-body experience was when I was a monk. And the other monks, they were talking about ghosts, and I'm as a puffed up German, I was like, you guys are, you're crazy, ghosts, ghosts don't exist, like you're you're crazy. So then I went to sleep, and then I suddenly, there is this state between deep sleep and you start dreaming, but you still have some awareness, and suddenly I felt like, I was over my body. And I freaked out because it was a very real experience. I was suddenly, there was nothing to hold me, and around me there was just darkness. There was nothing. There was no ground, no body, no nothing. It was just my awareness, and I could feel I was over my body, and I was losing it. It was a very scary experience, actually, but that was only the beginning. Because then, at that experience, a ghost came and started to strangle me like that. It was intense. I couldn't breathe. So then I started to chant the Hare Krishna mantra as much as I could. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And then the ghost started to laugh. It was like he was laughing and he was chanting it back to me. And I was like, oh my God, what I'm going to do now. And then I remembered, oh, Nishingadev. So then I was chanting Namaste, Narasimhaya, and he dropped me back into my body. And I woke up. I was really like, I was losing it, I was, we were lying on the floor. We were all monks in that room. I was like, my God, this is real. What am I going to do? And I was looking around and I was scared to go back to sleep because I thought, my God, if this ghost comes back again. But it didn't happen. Although I did have another experience with the ghost that I'm not going to share now, but I was again a little challenging. And then this happened again. But it was very interesting to me because I don't know how did I end up speaking about out of body experience? How did I end up here? I don't know. I was speaking about identity, huh?
You were saying we feel it in your heart and it's reality and in spirit. Whether you lose identity later when you die.
I still don't know how I ended up speaking about ghosts. But anyway, it was an out of body experience, and it was like, what you could say about this is that it was like a crisis of identity, because I had been, Simon that doesn't believe in such things, that believes in God and believes in the Hare Krishna mantra, but this, I never experienced it, so I don't believe in it. And then I experienced it, and then I had to make a choice. Oh yeah, maybe it was just hallucination of my mind, blah blah blah, or I accept it as a genuine experience. And this is also something that happens in spiritual life. At some point, we need to understand, what do we trust? Our own experience of the heart, or the mind that tries to rationalize everything? Oh, this is just. I remember, when I was starting to chant the Hare Krishna mantra, like I experienced like such a deep bliss and happiness that I was like, my God, what is this? This is like insane, And I was like, how is this possible? This must just be a biochemical reaction in the brain. I was trying to rationalize it down. And of course, it's a biochemical reaction in the brain, but there's so much more that happens on other dimensions at the same time. Because otherwise, there would be a pill that you can take and you could feel that bliss, but it doesn't exist. It exists, but with heavy repercussions afterwards, if you take any substances. So in spiritual life, our identity gets completely shattered. It gets completely destroyed, because we start to experience things that we should not experience. We start to experience a reality that we read about in books and that we thought is mythology, but then it starts to become real. And it's actually a very scary experience of the mind. When I had my most powerful spiritual experiences afterwards, I was trying everything I could to go as deep into material life as possible, because it's scary. Because it doesn't feel safe. It's not normal. If you read about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was acting like a madman, like a crazy person. You think if you would have been there at that time, oh, this is God, yes, I know. No, you would have, what crazy person is that? He's dancing, he's moving, he's screaming, he's like, like falling, losing consciousness, all of these different things. He was like a madman, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was like a crazy person. Because if you realize God, if you actually experience God, it is madness in love. It is so intense for the heart that the body can hardly take it. And therefore, in spiritual life, it's always a question of, can I let go of this identity? Can I let go of the past? Can I let go? And in the end, we have to let go of everything. We also have to let go of the identity that I'm a Hare Krishna devotee, I'm a Sankirtan devotee, I'm a Pujari. Do you think that is the relationship that you have with Krishna? Maybe. Maybe there's Sankirtan in the spiritual world, but maybe not. The point is, like, our mind can attach itself to anything and everything that gives it some temporary feeling of safety. So, one more thing I will share, which is, like in 2023, I was going through a bit of a spiritual crisis because of certain things that happened. I'm not going to mention them now here. But I was thinking that, my God, I think my Hare Krishna time is over. Because after all, I don't really feel like I fit into this group anyway. I feel like so out of place, even now, all the time. So I was going into the forest, and then I was like, yes, I'm letting go of being a Hare Krishna devotee. I'm letting go of being a husband. I'm letting go of being a coach and healer. And as I was chanting the Maha Mantra, all of these identities were falling away from me. All of these different identities were falling off. And as this was happening, I started to feel so light. I started to feel so good. And then I had such a powerful experience of God that it was incredible. And in that experience, what I felt I received from God was, you cannot find me in any religion. You cannot find me in any community, in any sect, I am wherever your heart is at. And then I had another vision in that experience of Prabhupada. Because at that time I was like, Prabhupada, I can't be in this movement. There's so much discrimination and so much stuff going on. And Prabhupada said, look, I came only to help you to love God. That's all I'm about. I just want you to love God. And then my heart again became peaceful. And therefore, this is where you will always find me. You will always find me there where people practice love of God, where they experience love of God. This is where you will always find me. And so like this, we all have our individual relationship with Srila Prabhupada. We all have our individual relationship with God. And ultimately, the spiritual experiences, they shatter our temporary identities and they bring us slowly closer and closer to the Lord. Until, hopefully one day we become a madman like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But this is not something we can imitate. Because first, we are on our own battlefield like Arjuna. We struggle with relationships with other people. We struggle with when we get up, what do we eat? What should I do in my life? Should I get married? Should I travel somewhere? What job should I do? Like nowadays, we have so many possibilities and opportunities. The whole world is open to us. It's a curse and a blessing. So don't think that what you do in the world is separate from God. Don't think that God is just here on the altar. How did Nishingadev appear? Hiranyakashipu was asking Prahlad, where is your God? And Prahlad was saying, everywhere. So, is he in that pillar? Prahlad was like, yes, he is. And then Nishingadev appeared from the pillar. Because God is not just on the altar, God is literally within everything. I have to be really careful saying this here. But it is true. God is within everything, and especially in our heart. So does that mean like, so then why is here like a whole drama going on the altar, all this worship dressing? No, that's for us. Because when you look at this cup, I'm sure you don't see God, you see a cup. So we invite the Lord to become present in the form so that we can develop a relationship with God. And the deity, this altar, you can see a piece of stone or you can see the Lord. Literally, you can see the Lord according to your state of heart. So some people go on the altar, they don't see anything. They're like, some people go there, offer some prayers, give me money, give me this, give me that. Some people pray for love. Some people, when they look at the altar, they experience love. They experience love and devotion. They look at the altar and they're blown away. So it's all a matter of our state of consciousness, what we carry inside of our heart, that is going to allow us to perceive an eternal reality or to just go back to a temporary identity that we have created over so many lifetimes. And it is the job of the Guru to shatter this identity. And therefore, sometimes when you come to spiritual life, you think, it's just going to be peace and love. And yes, but it's also, some fire, some intensity is needed. Because otherwise the identities cannot be given up. The different identities that we give ourselves. Okay? Are there any questions or comments before Gurati starts? Okay.
So sometimes it's so difficult to, even if one start to realize, okay, like I have so many impurities in my heart, and I would like really to understand that it's also for my own betterment that I try to get rid of all different attachments and so. But it's so one feels like a wall, feels like this obstacle cannot do much about it, and sometimes it also stays on the mind platform also instead of going deep. In these verses, Krishna is advising Arjuna to cut it with the weapon of knowledge, all these doubts and all this identification. What would you suggest also to for this kind of obstacles that one would feel continuously then on the path?
I mean, in one sense, that's what I was talking about. Like the knowledge is meant to give a change of heart and a change of identity. Because look, you can ask any academic person to come and study the Bhagavad Gita, and they will sit down here and they will give an amazing talk about Bhagavad Gita, about the chapters, about, like Bhakti Shastri, it's a very academic study, How much transformation happens there, we don't know. so the point is, a lot of transformation can happen, but the point is that you can use your intellect to help yourself to make sense of certain things or to develop a certain determination to go in a certain direction. But as you probably noticed yourself, that's not all. It only brings you onto a certain state. It only brings you to, at least externally following the way you're meant to do. But the change of heart only comes when you even let go of the intellect. So faith, because really what Krishna is saying here is like, stand and fight, have faith in me, have faith in my words, have faith in what I've just spoken, have faith in that. And faith is not like, it is not really something rational in a sense. You want to tell me that Krishna playing a flute with Radha in the spiritual world is something very rational? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu dancing like a madman? See, the intellect can help us to put things into perspective, but at least this is my understanding, like I'm not so much of a jnani anymore. So, and I noticed in my spiritual life, my intellect only takes me to a certain level, but ultimately I need something to touch my heart. I need to be able to go in front of the Lord and to let go of everything, to say, I don't know anything, I don't know nothing, but I know I have this calling for your love. That's when something can happen. And most of my spiritual experiences, they happened when I was letting go of my identities, of who I think I am, of what I think I can do and cannot do. It's only when you penetrate that layer of the mind and the intellect that you reach the soul and the deeper chitta. So yeah, but also of course it takes time. It takes time. And it takes a lot of courage, the spiritual path. Because most of the time we just use our spiritual life to hide ourselves. We go from living a victim life before, joining a spiritual community, and we again hiding in that. Like Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, you can chant the holy name for thousands of lifetimes. Come back again and again as a devotee without transforming. The heart is not something that you can also explain so much. It is something that you experience. It is something that is given through grace. And you must have experienced it, the heart. You chant the holy name in prayers and kirtan. These moments when something deeper happens inside your heart, some deeper bliss comes up, some deeper happiness, something that tells you. And to the degree you can let go and just go into that, to that extent you will also experience transformation. So in the beginning it's of course nice, we need to understand, we need to learn, we need to make sense of things, and we use our intellect. Okay, I get up in the morning because it's good, because it's Brahma Muhurta, because it's Sattva Guna, because it helps me to chant, and all of these different things. So that's all there and important, but ultimately it's about really being authentic. It means like if you walk the spiritual path, you have to be you. Because if you go in front of Nishingadev and you make a big show of like humility and of so many things, how is he gonna like that, Because he knows you, he's in your heart, he knows everything. He knows all your dirty secrets, he knows everything. Even the things that you don't know. Krishna knows everything about you. So therefore, to the degree we are very honest and authentic with ourselves, and we have really that intense desire to want that love. I don't want knowledge, I want love. To that extent, the Lord reciprocates. I don't know if that answers your question. It's just, see, it's also different takes. You ask another person, they will say something completely different. But this is my mood and my approach in spiritual life. And this is how, when I read the Bhagavad Gita, that's what I read and that's what I experience. Yeah. Any other question? Okay, so then we're going to have Gora Aarti. See Nishingadev, and hopefully Nishingadev will also appear in our hearts. Srila Prabhupada ki.